I was watching watching some of Richard D. Hall's stuff the other day. Some of that is quite interesting, and I think Richard asks some good questions. I think though that from what I saw of his stuff on the Apollo missions and the Mars Rovers, I think he's probably one of these guys that started off looking into all this conspiracy stuff as a genuine researcher, but has sort of gone down the path most of the others go down. They realise that they can make enough money out of it to live on, and they give up their proper full-time work and just make YouTube videos and do presentations on this conspiracy theory subject. You know, he's got a fairly broad range of things he's looked at. He's even deviated into Didcot murders and the Madeleine McCann disappearance. But I think he must know that what he's saying about the Mars Rovers not really being on Mars and being in, Antarctic, the Canadian Antarctic, and on Earth, he must know that can't possibly be true. And he must know that it can't possibly be true that the moon landing was faked. I saw him talking about the Stanley Kubrick Dark Side of the Moon mockumentary. Well, that's exactly what it was. None of the people that were on it complained about being on it because they've got a sense of humour. It was done in fun. It's supposed to be humorous. There's not supposed to be anything realistic in it whatsoever. I've said on another video that there would have been a lot of people tracking that moon mission. The Russians would have been tracking it, and they would have been able to hear the astronauts on the moon, and they would have been able to look at the phase shift on the signals. They would have known they were on the moon, where they were on the moon. They were moving around on the moon. When it comes to the Mars Rovers, the same thing's true. You can't say, well, the rovers are on Earth. They're on a remote part of Earth. Excuse me, and the whole thing's being faked. It's just ridiculous because the European Space Agency would have to be in on it because Curiosity relays data up to the Maven spacecraft that's in orbit around Mars, which comes back to the European Space Agency Deep Space Network on Earth, the tracking stations on Earth. The Australians would have to be in on it because Honeysuckle Creek and Parkes receive data from Curiosity and from Curiosity's orbiter. I can't remember what that's called now. But there is also there's an amateur radio. I know Richard's done a thing with a radio ham. He's sort of looked a little bit at ham radio. Radio hams have got amateur satellites, and there's an organisation in the UK called AMSAT, which is based at the University of Surrey, and they make satellites, and they actually refurbished a deep space Earth station. I think it was in Germany. It was a derelict one, or an abandoned one, and they got permission to bring it back into service for amateur radio work. And they actually tracked Curiosity on the way to Mars. Now, I can't remember whether they actually got any data from the probe once it was on the surface, or whether they got any data from the probe that Curiosity relays through that's in orbit. It's not Odyssey, is it? I can't remember what the name of that bloody thing is now. But so there's an awful lot of people that would have to be in on the con. So someone in the European Space Agency would know that it's not there. This bunch of amateurs would have said, "Hey, wait a minute, there's nothing on its way to Mars. What on earth is going on?" The Australians would say, "Struth, mate, you got to be joking. It's not on Earth, it's on Mars." So if you see any of Richard D. Hall's stuff, convincing as it may be, with his 50-page hypothesis and all this sort of stuff, it's nonsense. The Mars Rovers are on Mars, and an awful lot of people work on that project from all sorts of different organisations, and you can just take it for granted that's the case. Same with the Apollo missions. There'll be so many people looking at that. No way would that have been faked, because it was the height of the Cold War, and if the Russians could have said, "Hey, that's a fake, they're not doing that." Remember, there was a space race on. who was going to get to the moon first. The Russians were working on that as well. If they could have stood up and said the Americans have faked it, they would have done. So there's absolutely no doubt whatsoever that the Americans went to the moon. The Apollo missions, the 6 Apollo missions that made it to the moon, the lunar surface, made it to the lunar surface. You can take that to the bank, as they say. There was another thing I thought was quite funny. Richard said, and he was discussing the might have been Spirit or Opportunity rover with this other fella, and he was saying, he doesn't believe it's still under power. And I think that mission was only supposed to last 92 days, but he was saying, well, it's powered by something like a laptop battery, and he doesn't believe that it could still be going, and it wouldn't work in the temperatures and all this sort of stuff. Well, I would have thought that it might have occurred to Richard and the other guy that NASA isn't going to go down the road and buy a laptop battery or take a battery out of a laptop. They're going to have a battery. It may very well be a lithium-ion battery, but it's going to be specifically designed, for operation in the environment that the vehicle's going to find itself in. It's not going to be a run-of-the-mill battery. So I have absolutely no doubt that it's operating as they tell us it's operating. I mean, the thing was only supposed to last 92 days. If there was any kind of conspiracy, they could say, well, the 92 days are up, it's dead. So it's very entertaining, Richard's channel, and there might be some snippets of wheat amongst all the chaff, but I think most of it, unfortunately, is chaff. So there we go. There's my 2 bobs worth on Richard D. Hall's channel, and I'll leave some links below so you can have a look at the radio hams communicating or listening to Curiosity, and you can look at the connection that the ESA has to the project and to the Australians as well. So you can have a bit of a read of that. Okay, well, thanks for watching. I'll probably catch you again.